Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Eclecticka. I am Sensei Vegan, aka Charles Dixon. We have the wonderful Cece.
Thank
And
you,
our
Charles.
special guest this evening is Mr. Earl Lucas, one of the head designers of the 2018 Lincoln Navigator. It's a pleasure having you here. And then on the wheels of steel, we have Mr. Seven. And how's everyone doing this evening?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We're going to have a wonderful show. First things first, we definitely have to give kudos to Mr. Earl Lucas. It is a pleasure having you here. I met you a few weeks ago at the New York Auto Show.
Yes,
We
sir.
talked cars, we talked comics, we talked comics, we talked cars. It's a highlight of the show. And if you can just give everyone an insight on what you do for Lincoln, your love for comics, how we can merge all this stuff together. We would love to hear it straight from you. So, with no further ado, Mr. Earl Lucas, the floor is yours.
I tell you, that was such a build-up, man. I don't want to let them down now. To be honest with you, I am a chief exterior designer for Lincoln, which of course is a part of the parent company for Vision. And I am responsible for drawing and sketching the exterior. Oh, I'm sorry. I am a chief designer for Lincoln Design, and I'm responsible for the exterior development of products from that brand. Now, as it relates to comics, right? It relates to it's sketching, and all the creative aspects of designing comics or designing cars are all related.
Awesome. So, what inspiration, when you're creating, what characters influenced you when you're growing up in comics? Like for me, it was Spider-Man. As I got older, it was Superman and Batman. What characters sort of like brought you into the comic book world?
So on the real, I was always a huge fan of Thor. Thor was something about that dude, man, in this fighting for glory and kind of like fighting for honor. It was just something corny about that dude that I've always loved. You know what I'm saying? I've always been a big fan of Iron Man, which is of course a big deal. Well, it's more related to what I do because it's Iron Man, a car. It's kind of related in terms of the same processes how things are made. But when I was younger, my mother bought me a bed set and curtains of Spider-Man. So Spidey has always been there. So those three characters, but mainly my favorite one has always been Thor, though.
Wow. Wow. Now, are you looking forward to the new Ragnarok movie coming out?
Man, do you see that? Listen, hey, come on. I mean, you see the action of seeing Thor's hammer being crushed. I'm just listen. What does he do? He has no hammer now. How does he fight? Right? But we all know that Thor's is a capable warrior, man, and he'll figure out a way. And then seeing him fight Hulk, everybody knows about the classic battle between Hulk, graphic novels, Hulk fighting Thor. So hey, this is gonna be a great movie, man. No doubt about it.
Now, for me, like seeing these movies happen right now, it's like when I was a kid. Of course, I imagine all this stuff, but to actually see a lot of this stuff come to life when you're sitting in that movie theater, what's going through your head? It's like, can you believe it's actually happening? Because I remember some of the early movies, and you're looking at stuff now. It's just like night and day. How is that affecting you? Like when you go to the movies and stuff?
So we all have the images of the comics in our minds, right? We know John Byrne and how he drew comics. We know all these. Steve Ditko, all these famous artists that were drawing the comics. So there's a certain vision that you have, comic look like, and now you're trying to see that in live animation or in live. They're planning them out on the movies. So there's always a point of, are they going to be true to the comics? Are they going to be, are they going to be true to Vision and his abilities, right? So you're always wondering if they're going to be true to the comics. But then again, their powers being displayed that way on the big screen is, oh, that's what that looked like. Nightcrawler is really a cool character because some of those characters I thought were whack. When you see him on the big screen, you see what Nightcrawler could do, get to the president. I mean, that was hot. So, I mean, there's always this thing in my mind, are they going to be true to the comics? But then, are these characters really interesting? Are they really, cool characters? So I love seeing them on the big screen.
Awesome. And if you had a choice, what would you like to work on? I know you're a fan of Thor, but what else would you like to work with? Thor, Hulk. Would you like to do something with the Avengers? Would you like to write something for DC, Marvel? How would you like to interact in that whole comic book realm? What would you like to do?
Let's be fair. Out of all the like the X-Men, the Avengers, and even Guardian of the Galaxy, I mean, they've come across pretty good. But for some reason, why the Fantastic Four just
it was kind of a letdown, huh?
They keep missing it, man. Right?
Yeah.
And then we all know that when Galactus comes to Earth, and all the Avengers and all the Fantastic Four have to fight together to fight off Galactus. That is a storyline that I see that they're missing, right? And Galactus, how he was depicted, man, on the screen was just, I wanted to see the dude with the big hat, man. And
yeah, oh my goodness. I'm glad you said that because I heard so many people say that, like during the movie, people were like looking like, what's this? Yeah, you got to have the big old helmet with the two big old antennas on it.
Yeah, and just having to deal with Silver Surfer, changing his allegiance and fighting him into the end. It's like, come on, man. So if you ask me that, Charles, I would want to do Fantastic Four, get an opportunity to design kind of like the vehicles and design, their environment in which they work in, right? Read and that still comes across weak to me in the movies, and they are such good characters. But
they haven't had a good run at all. They haven't scripts shoddy. The last one really hurt the franchise. And
I don't know if you can reset it so soon, but it was horrible.
Yeah. Well, definitely they're going to have to do something with the Fantastic Four because they do play a pretty big part in the Infinity Gauntlet. So they're setting, that's what they're setting up. I went to see Guardians. Spoiler alert, if you didn't see it, I don't want to say too much. Excellent movie.
Right.
Definitely on par with the first one. I actually think it might be better than the first one.
Wow.
In a sense, because you actually get to see more and learn more about the characters.
Okay, so you got to help me with this, Charles. How are they going to insert Adam Warlock? How are they going to? He has to get in there somehow. Where is this boy going to show up?
Okay, I don't want to ruin the whole thing for you, but they do the post credits toward the end. They actually mention Warlock's name. They do, so they bring him in. It's at the very, very end.
Okay.
Because they said Adam, and everyone's like Adam. Like, yeah, that's Adam Warlock. Okay. Cannot do the Infinity Gauntlet without having Adam Warlock. It's just not going to work. He has the soul gem. He has the soul gem.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so listen, that sounds a little geeky. Forgive me.
All right, man. That's what we're here for.
Speaking of which, it's funny because, like, thinking about what it is that you do for a living, you really are an artist, right? Absolutely. But you have this, like, almost, like, corporate respectable job, but then at the same time, you're an artist. So there's that whole contrast where it's like you kind of defy the notion of the whole starving artist thing. And especially as an artist of color, and I guess what I'm getting at is, do you, as a geek, have you ever considered possibly like outreach, and like doing workshops and stuff as an artist and as a geek?
You know what? To be fair, that was a great segue because I do a lot of, okay. So I do have the corporate responsibility. I am responsible for creating and developing the brand of Lincoln via the cars, via the surface language, via the messaging, right? So I do have that responsibility, and I am a corporate artist. All artists dream, and I dream outside the box, man. So I have I have responsibility, but then again, there's always this what if that lingers with me,
right?
And I always have to. And I have to sketch, I have to draw, and even now without the clock being there. But the thing now that I have the responsibility, and I don't take this lightly.
Right.
Some of the things that I've been given.
Right.
Sharing some of the things that I've learned, and sharing them. I mean, so there are a number of projects that I do, and one in particular is this project Diva that I've been working on, and I don't have to go into details about it, but it's something that I do to give back. to not just the community, but also an outlet for my creative aspirations outside of just designing cars.
Cool. And how did you find your way, like as an artist? Like, where did you train? And how did you ultimately find yourself at Lincoln? And is there anything, was there ever a period where you were a starving artist? And what would you say to anyone who's like kind of in that, like what would you say to like encourage anyone who feels like they're a starving artist and is trying to, follow their dreams, but at the same time they got to pay bills?
I tell you, here I grew up in Dallas. I grew up on the call it the sunny south side of Dallas, and what that means is that there wasn't a lot of opportunities on track. But anyway, I think the one thing that regardless if I had money, didn't have, it's always true. Okay, I'm sorry. I was always true to the art form, and what that means is whether there was income coming in or whether there was no income coming in, you have to be true to the art, right? So, to be fair to you, I do okay with Ford Motor Company, but I would draw cars even if they were paying or not, right? I love the process. I love the creative process where you're seeing something off a blank sheet of paper and then you see it culminate into the final vision, right? So that process is the thing that gives me joy. Now I'll take more dollars, but really that's the push for me. So if I'm talking to anyone who wants to follow their path to creative success,
right,
they got to go through those late nights. If you think that I just walked up, 18 years later, I'm having the success that I'm having now just overnight, that is not true. There were long nights, there were some starving nights, there were some nights where we put in the midnight hours. There were some times where I didn't get my things selected, and you're pondering and wondering why not me, right? So I would just say, man, you got to stay true to that art form, and if it means that you have to go without, hey, you have to do it because it makes the other side that much better.
Wow.
Those are words.
Yes.
It's crazy that you said that. Not crazy. I'm glad that you said that, because when you try to explain that to people, some people don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? We went through the same thing with Vex. It's like you have to put the time in.
Yeah.
It's like, again, people don't see the endless hours, the writing, the drawing of the press work, dealing with the printers and stuff not coming back right, and it's a headache. And you get to that point where you're like, is it worth it? And I always say to myself, darn right, it's worth it. You gotta climb, man. You gotta climb in order to reap those benefits. So I'm glad you said that. People,
just add a little bit to it.
Definitely.
I just add a little bit to that because I don't want to turn this to a sermon. Right? I don't want to turn this into preaching to folks. But ultimately, you have to decide what you want to be. I mean, hey, listen, you have to decide what you want to be. I mean, there are going to be so many folks along the way that will tell you yay or nay, or so many people discouraging you, so many people encouraging you. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to be what you want to be. Now, I decided to go down this road. I mean, there was no one in my family that did design work. There was no one in my family that had a really artistic. Well, my mother, I take that back. My mother had some creative inklings, and she was a interior decorator. So I learned about dreaming, about what if, really kind of from my mother. But at the end of the day, man, I did those late nights. I did those late nights trying to correct my perspective when I'm drawing, and getting called out in college about things looking right.
I got called out.
Now, where'd you go to school?
I'm sorry. I went to school in Detroit, Michigan. A school by the name of Center for Creative Studies. Actually, they called it College for Creative Studies in Detroit. School very well renowned for creating transportation designers, right? So I went there, and I grew up in Texas. We didn't have any family in Detroit.
Right.
I knew no one. I didn't know anyone. I just had a dream that I wanted to do something creative. And we went to that school and we paid the cost of what it means to be a car designer. We paid the cost, so we did it. But it was a labor of love. I can't imagine now what I would be doing if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now.
Wow.
Awesome.
Dope. And you seem like you're more. I'm sorry to cut you off. What you going to ask, Charles?
No, go ahead.
So, You seem like overall you're definitely more of like a comic fanboy. Are you into anime? Are you into sci-fi? Like, what are you into? What are your vices?
Okay.
Aside from Thor and You seem like you're definitely a Marvel guy.
Well, yeah. To be fair, I mean, not to say that DC, but I've always thought that DC characters were two-dimensional. But I've always felt that Marvel characters, like Iron Man, have an issue with alcoholism. I mean, that was real. That was
layers, yeah.
Exactly, and those are the kind of people are flawed. So I always like flawed characters, even though I did like Thor, who had the issue about ruling Asgard in his father's place, but he had to turn over to Loki, who he knew was crazy. I mean, I like that. I like that layered kind of hero. But I do like anime. In fact, the creativity. I grew up off Star Blazers. I grew up with G-Force and
Look at Charles. He's like so excited.
It's just memory lane. I grew up on that stuff. Robotech.
Yeah, Robotech.
All that stuff.
Yeah, see, I was just after that wave. I was like the last wave of like Thundercats and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Like that was my, that was my generation.
But the anime thing, to be fair, really, there is so much creativity in those things, right? So much creativity. I remember the Invid fighting in what is that? Star? No, it was I can't remember those guys. Anyway, it was Star Blazers, I believe it was, right?
Okay.
No, it was Robotech. No, Robotech. I'm getting Robotech. And I remember seeing the alien ships in that. I was like, man, who thinks up those ships? Because they are awesome, So I mean, I get into all that, and I have an affinity for just that whole creative process, and I respect it, whether it's a car, whether it's a comic book, or whether it's anime. Listen, it's all artistic endeavors for me, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, good stuff.
I think for me, the anime that put it over the top, and I watched this thing so many times, and it influenced me a lot in my early years of developing Vex was, and I can't even get it out, Fist of the North Star. Fist of the North Star, man. I watched that thing so many times. I fell in love with that. And to this day, it's still probably one of my favorite anime movies. And that inspired me a lot, too.
I was going to say Ninja Scroll, because I thought I loved
Ninja Scroll was another one, too. Yeah,
Ninja Scroll. Double Blade, man. I said, look at that character design.
Wow.
Good stuff. Not about it.
Wow. Yeah, they really paved a lot of those movies paved the way for shows that, people in my I guess, I don't want to say generation, because I feel like we're kind of in the same generation, but people more so in my age group, like the Dragon Ball, the Sailor Moon, and I mean, Dragon Ball really spans across generations, right?
They could kind of stretch it out.
Right. It's kind of like Star Trek almost. But pretty much Robotech and all that stuff paved the way for like Voltron and all those shows that we enjoy, so definitely respect. And even Speed Racer. Speed Racer was a big, and a lot of people don't really recognize it as an anime.
No, they don't. They had no idea that was anime.
But Speed Racer.
I can't name one car designer that I know that was not influenced by.
Right, like how it influenced the car, like you could say that it kind of paved the way for like Need for Speed, Fast and Furious.
All that stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
And let me be the first to say that I bought Speed Racer. I mean, a lot of folks thought that it was a little cheesy, right? But the movie was hot, man.
Yeah, the movie I thought was good. I didn't think it was bad.
Just the idea, though, of, think about it. A car that can fit every need, no matter what you need it to do, right? It can happen. Man, that's perfect for guys like me, man.
Right, and there's so many shows based off of that concept, too.
Yeah, we talk about that on the show. That is one movie I wish they would actually go back in and reboot that thing, because I still think I think it was just a little bit before its time.
Yeah, definitely.
With the technology and everything, and I think now if they did it again, it would be a home run.
Right. But the one thing that we, maybe I'm being critical is, but when you see movies like that, they don't need to depend upon the cheesiness. Like, for example, at the end of the guy sliding on his tip, the tires are rubber, I mean, they're melting. I mean, you don't need that, right? Let it through to this whole story about Racer X, having to leave his family for unseen reasons, and exposing his identity to his brother. I mean, that was good enough. I don't think they need to put the cheesy points of cars sliding all over them. I mean,
it had enough of a story to it that you could kind of go off of that and then just do the action, make it a little more authentic.
That's the only issue I had with the movie. I thought that it went just a little bit with the stuff being on the tracks. It was just overproduced with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could have did it on. It's not like a Fast and Furious style, but I mean, like a more realistic. Because the story, like you said, is perfectly fine.
Right.
Perfectly fine.
Right.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's the beauty of anime. Like there's always a good storyline.
Always.
Yeah.
I do have another question for you, Earl.
Okay, no worries.
Now, as far as we're on this superhero kick, so we might as well continue this. As far as, and Cece, you heard me say this so many times. I am really not. I gotta make sure I phrase this right. I'm not really feeling any of the female characters out there. I'm really not. I don't think they've done any justice really with female characters in movies.
Yeah.
So, what female character would you like to see in a movie?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, man, because I thought the same thing, and I know Charles probably remembers. We had a little conversation about this.
Yeah.
Designing a character, and then I've tried to do that.
Right.
But if a female character that I wanted to see, I've been fascinated with Storm, but they really don't.
Hey, don't do it.
They don't do it right.
Yeah.
It's so sad because she's such a formidable character. I think
it's time to see She-Hulk. I do She-Hulk. And everybody probably wants to see Miss Marvel. And I was always fascinated with Miss Marvel when I was coming up. But a good character. Oh, man.
Yeah, that was something we had talked about in the past couple of episodes, was the lack of female superhero characters, at least on the silver screen, and especially with women of color characters in general. Like, there's a lot of comics coming up. Like, you got Boricua, you have all these different comics and stuff coming up. But as far as, like, big productions, it's pretty much Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. So it's like, and even with Wonder Woman, as much as I'm a fan of it, I've been reminded of its like troubling history in terms of its like author. So it's like,
Yeah, but what was the female, the African American female that was married to Iron Fist, or she was dating Iron Fist?
Oh, that's Misty Knight. And then now they did do the Defenders trailer, which I'm really excited about. I don't know if you guys saw that. Yeah, that was really good.
Was she being shown there?
Yeah.
Yes, it's her, it's Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. So yeah, like super. I'm looking forward to that. So I think Netflix is kind of Netflix specifically has been really filling that void of diversity, and when it comes to women especially. But yeah, we need more.
Yeah, but doesn't that kind of tell you a little bit though? I mean, we all know that heroes really kind of like experiments in our subconscious. It's what we dream to be. There's psychologies. Why aren't there female characters that we truly aspire to be? I mean, I understand there should be more characters.
I mean, as a woman, it is frustrating, and it's like it's that much more frustrating because, like for example, I was reading an article recently, and I got really amped about it because it was like 11 black female characters that are really bad, and they're like don't get the I guess acclamation they deserve. And as I'm reading the descriptions, every description starts with like who their father is or who their husband is, and I'm just like, oh my god, like
you mean on their own?
Yeah, like dang, and it's like, yeah, Luke Cage, he winds up marrying Jessica Jones, so it's like he's just as much attached to Jessica Jones as Jessica Jones is attached to him, but it's like they never tell those same stories in the same way. So that's kind of frustrating, and it is kind of frustrating as a woman, but I definitely feel like today has been like the movies and episodes and stuff that we see now are a little bit better than they have been before.
Yeah.
And that maybe like when I was a kid, it was a lot like Power Rangers and stuff like that, Sailor Moon. Then it kind of fell off and picked back up again.
DC, do you think that it's just who writes the narratives? I mean, it's just who writes the narrative, right?
I think that, and I don't know. I feel like it's almost like people are kind of intimidated by the idea of having a movie centered around that, unless it's some type of, I don't know. And even with I guess there has to be some type of love story element, because every superhero, male or female, there has to be.
You don't. It's. I'm sorry. That drives me crazy sometimes. Like they try to force that in there. Let it happen organically. If it happens, it does. If it doesn't, you really don't need it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not, everything doesn't have to be a soap opera in order to pull in a bigger audience, man. Just let that script be organic and let it work itself.
Right. Like, I get it. I get the narrative of it, because with them being, superheroes, they're mostly outcast. They're very isolated. And their heart's in the right place. So it's something that a lot of like activists could probably identify with. Mine is having the superpowers. But it's like, as much as you try to do for other people and you try to do good, you want someone who understands you and is there for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's kind of like showing, I guess, the human, that's more or less how they know how to show the human side of these people, is seeing them fall in love. I don't know.
Way of showing, weaknesses or frailties.
Right. Like, oh, they're still vulnerable. Even with Batman, because Batman's the more stern one of all of them. Oh, we got it.
Okay. Well, before we wrap this up, we cannot end this without one last question. What was your dream car growing up? Or what was your dream car? CC, your dream car?
CC, you help me. You go first, so I can, because I have so many that I like.
Okay, well, if my dream car, like now, and I gotta give credit to my boy Marcus Brooks, who is like super car enthusiast. Shout out to the Wagnum, which is his sports car. But I would have to go with a Nissan Skyline, but I'm very privy. When I was a kid, I loved SUVs. It was weird. Yeah. So like a Navigator, I would love the Navigators. I love the that was my thing.
Well, I think for me, it's muscle cars. So I love 65 Mustangs. I love Camaros, GTs of that day. So muscle cars. But my favorite muscle car of all time is 1970 Mustang. Hopefully the Boss 429 Boss.
There we go.
Car. Awesome.
Yeah. And for me, I know you guys don't laugh, but as a kid, it was the Lotus Turbo Esprit, the one you used to wait in the James Bond movie. I wanted one. I still want one of those things so bad.
All right.
So bad.
Don't feel too bad, because I wanted an Escalade with, not the spinners, but I wanted obnoxious rims on it. So,
so guys, that is it for this week's show. Mr. Earl Lucas, I want to thank you for coming out and joining the cast. Please come back. Absolutely. Had a wonderful time. It was awesome. Cece, thank you, as always, for joining us.
Yes, always, Charles.
Mr. Seven laying it down, the maestro, thank you. And again, I'm Sensei Vegan, a.k.a. Charles Dixon, signing out for Eclecticka. Hello. Good night.
Shout out, Drew.
Drew, we miss you, Drew.
For you, Drew.
Y'all make it fun, man. Y'all make it a lot of fun. That's good stuff. I like those conversations, man.